retired Navy commander and writer. He's referred to by book critics as the best author working today in the naval thriller genre, which is bound to be a favorite of a lot of us, just with all of us having an affiliation or a love of the sea services. He's the author of several best-selling military and submarine thrillers, and most recent of which was released in March. It's a must-read. After we hear from him, Graphics Campus High School NJROTC Cadet Sayad Diambou, who some of you, might recall seeing profiled in our monthly members newsletter, and the rest of us, we've heard some glowing words from Evan earlier. He'll moderate a Q&A. Once you learn more about Rick, you'll understand why we asked a cadet from one of our sponsored youth units to play this role. Rick, welcome virtually to Fleet Week, New York.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to join you. First, I'll just start off with a little bit of background and kind of explain to everyone kind of why I'm here. So the background is I spent 32 years in the Navy in the submarine service, and then I was an avid reader as a kid growing up, and I always had this story rolling around in my head. And before I retired, I decided I would try to write that book, and I kept putting it off because I was a math and science guy in school and didn't think I had the talent. And my ninth grade teacher, English teacher, pretty much told me. So he said, "It's a pretty good thing you're good in math, Rick, because you'll never be a poet." So I kept putting it off because it was a bit of a challenge. But I ended up, and the short story is, ended up writing a book. And there's an adage that says, write what you love or write what you know. And I know submarines. So I wrote a book called Trident Deception, and that ended up getting me a book deal. And it was supposed to be just a check in the block, sort of like a bucket list thing. But the first thing the publisher asked when they were interested in the first book was, "Are you writing a sequel?" And my answer was, "Of course." So I ended up with a 2-book deal. And then the first book did so well when it came out, they offered me another 2-book deal a couple weeks later. So there I was under contract for 3 more books. And so I guess I'm a writer now. It's kind of how it worked out. So the way I ended up here is that, I grew up in a religious family. We always, gave a percentage of our income to the church. And I thought that I should do the same thing with my writing, give back to someone. And the answer was sort of obvious. I should give back to the Navy, to Navy veterans in particular. And it became clear that, Navy veterans in particular enjoyed my first book. And I think it's because they're about as authentic as you can get without getting classified. And I think it helped them bring back the memories from the time they were in the service, because they are pretty realistic in terms of how they're portrayed. So I thought that I started donating to Navy reunion groups. There's a couple hundred of those every year. And so I started donating a book to each one of those, about 600 or 700 of those a year. And then it didn't take long before I got requests from the Navy League. Said, "Hey, would you be interested in donating to the Navy League councils?" And I said, "Sure, that's a great idea." And then shortly after that, I got requests from one of the Navy League presidents. Says, "Well, would you donate, some books to our youth organizations?" And I thought that was a great idea as well. So before long, by the time my 3rd book came out, I was donating about 3,000 books a year to Navy veteran groups, about 1,000 hardcovers to the Navy reunion groups and Navy League councils and submarine veteran groups, and then about 2,000 paperbacks a year to Sea Cadets, Young Marines, and then and also the JROTC units. And that's been the kind of the pattern for the last couple of books. Although I did shift this year because it takes a lot of effort, and my agent and my publisher have been pushing me to get to more books, and it takes about 4 months to actually do that donation stroke in terms of the reaching out, and it really is over 5,000 emails. So anyway, starting this year, I'm going on to donation by request. If you want a book, just email me, and I've got most of you have been I have most of the contacts at all the Sea Cadet units and Young Marines and Navy League councils. But if you want a book for the council or for any or all of your youth organizations, just email me and I'll send you 2 books or so for the youth organizations or a hardcover for your council. So that's the background in terms of how I ended up connecting with Navy League councils. And also, I'm also a Navy League member as well. And then how I ended up being invited to join you tonight. Any questions?
All right, Sayad, if you want to come on and start the Q&A session.
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sayad Diambou. As stated, I am the current Cadet Commanding Officer of the Graphics Campus NJROTC unit, headed by Evan Dash here. And I will be going to the Naval Academy Preparatory School this summer and for next year to attend the Naval Academy. Rick, to start off, what was your time in the Navy like? Are there any experiences or something that you'd like to highlight for us?
Well, first, congratulations on your acceptance to NAPSA Naval Academy, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, as far as the Navy goes, yeah, there are a couple of unique things. I think one of my best memories is just the camaraderie of the crew. You know, one thing I noticed, you know, when I attended some Navy reunions is that, you know, seeing these, you know, former shipmates, you know, reunite on a yearly or every other year basis after 20, 30, 40 years after they left the ship, after only serving for a few, some of them serving only a few years. It really points out the tough job that we had and the people, the special people that we did it with, right? And so I think my memories of my shipmates and just working together with them over the years is one of the things I'll always remember. I also had the opportunity to go through the Panama Canal twice, which was kind of neat. So across the equator at the international date line, which makes me a golden shellback. And I also was able to get up to an ice camp on the North Pole, where we had submarines under the ice shooting torpedoes. And, you know, my job was to retrieve the torpedoes after they get launched, which was a bit problematic because ice cap was between us and the torpedoes. But I got some fond memories of my time in the Navy and got to do some things that most people, you know, wouldn't be able to do.
All right.
Rick? Go on.
What made you decide to become an author?
I was an avid reader as a kid. I mean, I would, you know, read 2-3 books a week sometimes. And actually, I read a lot of science fiction, fantasy. And as I mentioned, I had a story in my head for about 20 years. I couldn't bring myself to write it, but eventually did. You know, and I call that book zero because that book went nowhere. But I ended up enjoying writing the book, and I didn't want to be a total failure, so I thought I would try again. And so I followed the adage, you know, write what you love or write what you know. So I had written what I loved, and no one else loved it. So I said, I'll write what I know, and I know submarines, right? And so that led to the Trident Deception, and that did the trick. Then I got an agent after that, and then I got a publisher, and so that it kind of the rest is history, as they say.
All right. Are there any characters in your books that are based on you or any of the sailors that you met during your time in the Navy?
Well, none of them are based on me, but there are. I guess there's 2 characters I think in the books that are based on real people. It's my books have pretty much a 4-character main set, 4-character montage. There's no true main character, but one of them is a Navy captain. He's a commanding officer of submarine USS Michigan, and he moves around, and he's based off of a friend of mine. We went through school together in the Navy, submarine officer advanced course, executive officer courses and whatnot. And so when I write the character, I can envision him. And in fact, I think his first name is the same as his real name, but I did change his last name. And then there's another one of the 4 characters is a Navy SEAL, another friend of mine who, again, he was also in the Navy. Wasn't a SEAL though, but he's kind of like if you had to put a poster up of a Navy SEAL, this is the guy on the poster, kind of a thing.
Are there any authors who have inspired your work?
Yeah, actually, it's probably a lesser known author named Andrew Britton. So when I was you know, trying to write the book, it was a bit of a challenge because, as I mentioned, I don't have a background in writing, but I've been very, very lucky. I think when it comes into the entertainment industry, and writing is one of them, you need a little bit of talent, but you need even more luck, right? I think if you've probably all heard the story, it's about the band that's been playing in the roadside cafe for 10 years, and then one night, you know, the music executive stops by for a bite to eat, sees them playing, and then the rest is history. And the only difference between that band and the other band down the road is luck, right? So I had a lot of luck when it comes to writing. And one of those is I ended up connecting with an author or an agent, their agent, who I think she saw some talent there, but knew I wasn't ready. And she pretty much took me under her wing and she taught me how to write. And one of the authors that she thought that I would learn the most from was an author called Andrew Britton, and she actually sent me some of her books, and I studied him, and he's a fantastic writer, and in a way I sort of cracked the code, so to speak, in terms of, how do you structure a book, how do you structure a chapter, how do you tell a story, and I think most of that came from Andrew Britton.
When working on a new book, what does your writing process look like?
So when it comes to writing, at least on the thriller side, I need big blocks of time. I'm not the kind of writer who can write for 20, 30 minutes at a time. So if I don't have a 3-hour block, I don't even get started. And generally, I kind of do it in phases. I'm either in the writing phase, or I'm in the outlining phase, or I'm in the marketing promotion phase, so to speak. So once I get into the writing phase, I will typically write 10 to 14 hours a day, just day after day. I just get up and I don't do anything all day long except stop to eat, go to the bathroom, take a shower, go to bed. That's it, until I get done. So for weeks and weeks on end, it's pretty much, I kind of get into a zone, so to speak. And it really helped, because if I'm not in the zone, if I write a little bit here and there, and then I go back when I'm in the zone, I look at it and go, oh, that's terrible. It doesn't come out the same way unless you're really kind of immersed in it, So yeah, pretty much very focused when I write.
What do you hope that readers take away from your books?
Well, the most important thing is that they enjoy the books, really. So, I mean, that's my goal as a writer. Sometimes you come across a reader where you see their political leanings come into the books. And I really hate those kinds of books and writers, really. I mean, my job is to entertain you, not to influence your political or moral beliefs. So I go through quite an extensive effort to try to keep my books down the middle and not leaning left or right, to the point where, all my books have a political thriller element. And I don't even tell you which administration, which party the main characters belong to, Republicans or Democrats. I just tell you one of them is on the opposite, and I'll let you guys kind of sort it out. And apparently I've done a pretty good job, because, when I talk to readers and friends who've read the book, it's very interesting, because one of the main characters, who's the most popular character, my Republican friends go, yeah, she's a Republican and administration is Democrats. And then my liberal friends go, no, she's a Democrat and administration is Republican. So I think I've done a good job keeping it down the middle, and I just focus on, my job is to entertain you, and also, from the youth side of the spectrum, I think you can learn a lot. Young kids can learn a lot about the Navy, about submarine service and the Navy communities in general, whether it's surface and air, in all my books. So I think it's, my job is entertain, and then also I think it can be educational somewhat for the Sea Cadets and young Marines.
All right, awesome. And finally, what can you tell us about your new novel, Deep Strike, that was released in March?
Okay, Deep Strike is it's the beginning of a new kind of a 3-book series. All my books are standalones, but it does help a little bit when there's sort of an underlying story that kind of runs, or theme that kind of runs through them. So contractually, I have to write a submarine thriller. So my contracts are 28 pages long, single space, but when it comes to the topic, it's a one-liner, submarine thriller, right? So there's going to be a submarine in there somewhere. But it's hard to write a 300, 400-page book with scene after scene on a submarine. I mean, there are some books like that, but those are boots on the deck type of books, where my book is more global, more like a Tom Clancy thriller, where you're jumping around from city to city and scene to scene. So I have to have sort of an espionage and political aspects to the book. And so in this book, it focuses on a resurgence of ISIS and Al Qaeda. Now that those are supposedly defeated, we sort of take our eye off the ball, and they start to regain strength. And they end up connecting with a Russian submarine captain whose daughter is dying of cancer, needs an experimental drug. It's too expensive, and so of course they agree to finance it for a small favor. And the small favor has to have this submarine launch missiles at the U.S. Unfortunately, unbeknownst to the Russian captain, his particular missiles, the conventional warheads, have been swapped out with nuclear warheads, and they've been armed. So that begins sort of a race against time to try to locate and sink the submarine before it launches its missiles. And that's the submarine aspect of it, which is about maybe a third to 40%, and then the other 60% is more the espionage and political intrigue of unraveling the whole story. It starts out with the assassination of the UN ambassador, and then somehow as they pull the string, end up discovering the plot and then trying to figure out how to stop it.
I believe now would be the time to ask Rick any further questions. I believe someone had a question.
Yeah, Lou, I think you had a question. Lou Liotti.
Yeah, I just want, Rick, thank you for coming. Did you enter the submarine service when Rickover was still in charge?
I just missed him. I got Admiral McKee, right? So I missed him by one. So no, unfortunately, I do not have any Rickover stories. My interview was as straightforward as it was a very, very matter of fact. Looked at my grades, said, why did you get a C in this course? And I have nothing interesting, no interesting story, unfortunately.
What I was interested in finding out was, for those of us who are older, how you might compare the submarine service under Rickover as it then came about to be, let's say, in the last 30 years.
Well, I'm not sure. I did notice a change in the submarine service, and I don't think it really had anything to do with the leadership at the top, but it was more of a cultural change. And I think, in my opinion, it was more of a shift from being forward-based to being home-based. So, for example, my first submarine, we were forward deployed in Holy Lock. And the language was atrocious. I mean, you couldn't, complete a sentence without a swear word in it. There were pick posters of naked girls hanging everywhere, and it was that kind of Navy, so to speak, right? By the time I ended up on my last submarine tour, I mean, there was officers didn't swear at all. There was none of that, naked girls and stuff. It was purely professional on the submarines. And working spaces, submarines, you might have a nice picture in your bunk, and that was about it. It was a very, very different shift in culture. But I think most of it was because when you're in Holy Lock, you're not bringing the wife and kids down to the boat. When you're tied up in your home port and they're bringing, the wife and kids down for dinner, when you got the duty, I think it just changed a little bit in terms of how you kind of behaved and how the ship was decorated, so to speak. So that's the one real difference, I thought. And then obviously, the big crackdown in alcohol and drinking. That was, I think I got in towards the very beginning of that. And you certainly saw the Navy become much more serious and focus on that effort. So those are really the two things from a cultural perspective I saw. Leadership wise, I didn't really see much change in terms of leaderships and I guess not styles and what was expected of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Thank you for that. I was just wondering if the submarine service underwent a culture change, as did the air service after something like Tailhook.
Yeah, well, I think we were a little different because they were all male the whole time I was in, so we never really had sort of that aspect to deal with, and certainly it's a lot easier, I think, when you don't have to worry about that. You got enough to worry about, so to speak, with just a bunch of guys. So I didn't really see that. Although it probably, manifested itself so much in the alcohol part, because I'm pretty sure the Airedales were all pretty toasted when they were behaving like that. But I think it was the alcohol part that I think was Navy-wide that, I don't know, may or may not have been tied to Tailhook. I think the culture as a general was becoming less accepting of that kind of behavior. You know what I mean?
No, thank you for your insight. That's interesting.
Okay, if anybody else has any questions, you can either type it into the chat, or I think we're a small enough group. You can just unmute and go right ahead.
That's oh.
Charlie?
Yes, I did a quick look on in Google about all the books that you have, Rick. If one were to start reading your series, where would one begin?
You would start at number 1. So it would be the Trident Deception. So as I mentioned, there are standalones, but they use the same character set. And there is some progression and some underlying kind of storylines between them. So it works best if you start the first one, and then if you like it, you keep on going. And then I think it works better that way.
Thank you.
Right? If you go on Amazon, for example, you'll see number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but the Trident Deception is number 1, and you can figure out, I think, from there where to go.
Thank you.
Quick one to Jess.
Yeah.
I can't get past the sign-on to go into our next session. Says bad password, and then it says it sends it to me, but it isn't.
Okay, well, in just 2 minutes, we're gonna bring Sean on and he can help troubleshoot.
Okay. Sorry.
All right. So Rick, are you working on your next book now, either in the outlining or writing phase?
Yes, the outline is done, and I'm in that transition before I sort of like dive into the writing. It usually takes like a little bit of courage or something, kind of got to immerse myself in. So I'm in that little bit of a transition phase at the moment. I got a little bit of a book promotions. As I mentioned, it's on request now. So I had sent out the email, early this year to about 4,000 of all my point of contacts. And so I got another, 100 or so packages to get, kind of with a couple hundred books to sign, and then they get kind of, packaged up and mailed. I'll probably do that this weekend, and then I can focus a little more on the writing part.
Will the pandemic be making an appearance in your next book?
No, no. I don't think so.
That'll be a refreshing read.
Yeah. I think we've had enough of that. That's for sure.
All right. If no one else has a question, thank you so much, Rick, for your time. Look forward to reading many more in the years to come. No pressure. But yeah, and for anyone who hasn't read any of Rick's work yet, definitely recommended. I can tell you later on which are my favorites.